S2 equipment, triple wash plants, mega dozers, and more Season 14 moments. The day began like any other in the unforgiving wilderness of the Klondike. The towering mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks dusted with a light covering of snow that whispered of the harsh conditions to come. For Rick Ness and his crew, the promise of gold was always a little bit further out of reach. But today, there was something different in the air. A tension, thick and heavy, like a storm was about to hit. Rick stood by the massive triple wash plant that had been delivered to their claim earlier this season. It was a behemoth, a monster designed to process more dirt, more material, and of course, unearth more gold than any of their previous equipment could. The sheer size of it was enough to make the heart race. Rick wasn't one to back down from a challenge, but running a triple wash plant came with its own set of complex hurdles. "We've got to keep this thing running 24/7 if we want to see results," Rick muttered to his crew as they prepped the wash plant. The tension was palpable. They had only one shot to make it work, and if they could harness its full potential, they'd finally strike gold. But it wasn't the plant's mechanical problems that had Rick on edge. No, it was something far more sinister, something that no one had seen coming. As Rick's team worked on setting up the wash plant and running preliminary tests, disaster struck. It started with a shout from one of the crew members near the main camp. Rick's heart sank. The dozer, a massive multi-ton machine that had been critical to clearing the land, was gone. It wasn't just a minor oversight. This was a serious blow to their operation. "What do you mean, gone?" Rick asked, walking quickly toward the camp. The crew member pointed to the empty space where the dozer had once been parked, then shrugged. "It was here last night, but now it's just gone, like someone took it." Rick couldn't believe it. The idea that someone had the audacity to steal one of their most valuable pieces of equipment seemed insane, but there was no other explanation. The dozer wasn't just parked out of sight. It was gone, and with it, the ability to break down the earth, move massive piles of dirt, and dig deeper than ever before. Who could have done this? Rick muttered, his voice tight with frustration. They were working in the middle of nowhere, miles from the nearest town. The isolation of the Klondike made it feel like the theft could only have come from someone who knew the area well, someone who had been watching them, perhaps, waiting for the right moment to strike. Rick was no stranger to challenges in the gold mining world, but this was different. This felt like a personal attack. Chapter 3: Racing Against Time. With the dozer missing and a rapidly escalating sense of unease spreading through the crew, Rick knew that time was ticking. They couldn't afford to lose precious days waiting for some miracle to find their equipment. They had a mission: make their claim profitable and harvest as much gold as possible from the land before the season came to an end. Losing the dozer was a huge setback, but they had no choice but to push forward. Rick surveyed the situation and quickly reassembled his crew to brainstorm their next move. The wash plant was operational, but without the heavy machinery to move material efficiently, they were stuck in a bottleneck. "Okay, here's what we're gonna do," Rick said, his tone determined. "We have a few options. We can either try to track down the dozer, or we can adapt and work with what we've got. We've got to keep this plant fed. We don't have the luxury of time." The crew nodded, realizing that the stolen dozer had thrown a wrench into their plans. But the reality of gold mining in the Klondike was brutal. Every hour wasted could cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars in gold. "Dozer or not, we need to get more material through the plant. Let's clear what we can with the excavator and get to work," Rick decided. There was no time to sit around, and with or without the stolen equipment, he had to keep the crew's spirits up. While the theft of their dozer was a devastating blow, it wasn't the only problem they faced. The mega dozers, those monstrous machines used to move earth faster and more efficiently, had been malfunctioning for weeks. Their engines were powerful, yes, but they were prone to overheating, and the cold climate of the Klondike wasn't doing them any favors. In a moment of sheer frustration, Rick had walked over to the nearest Megadozer and kicked the metal frame. It was as if the machine was mocking him, grinding to a halt every time they needed it most. "Come on," Rick growled, slamming his hand on the hood of the machine. "We need you now more than ever."